Morning, it's March 20th. This is to my liberal friends. Well, Donald Trump has one major problem, and it's his Achilles heel. It is his mouth. There appears to be no filter between his brain and his mouth, and it continually gets him in trouble. A while back, he said he would be a dictator on the first day of his administration. Of course, the media pounced on the word dictator and took it out of the context he was using it. What he was saying is that he would, like all his predecessors, wipe out all of the executive orders that Joe Biden put in place. And this is exactly what Joe Biden did when he took office. He eliminated all of the Trump executive orders. That did not make him a dictator. It made him the new president. But Trump's use of the word allowed the media to put him on the defensive. To those that have listened to this podcast over any period of time, they'll know that I'm not a huge fan of Donald Trump. I'm a moderate Republican who spent 42 years working in and around Congress. I have a pretty good idea how Congress and Washington work and know that when you say nothing, when you should let your actions speak for you. But that's not Trump's style. He has to tell everyone how great he is and how great his policies are for the nation. I could make a long list of times when Trump should have remained quiet, but we all know that he's not and will not be quiet. I've repeatedly said that if someone had simply taken his phone away while he was president, he would have won a second term in a landslide. And I've always felt that he enacted some good policies, and everyone would have to admit that he got the economy going, and absent the COVID pandemic, we would still be rolling along. For all the liberal gibberish about the 2017 tax bill being something that only benefited the wealthy, experts finally had to admit, along with some of the most liberal media outlets like the New York Times and Washington Post, that it gave a tax cut to the middle class and stimulated the business community. Unemployment was the lowest it had been in decades, and millions of jobs were created. At this point, I want to enter a caveat. Unemployment is again at record low levels, and job growth is back on track. And Joe Biden loves to brag that he's responsible. But how many of those created jobs were actually jobs that returned as the pandemic waned? How many were jobs that were lost because of government actions that forced businesses to either close or be severely restricted? Moving back to Trump and his penchant for saying the wrong thing, he's almost as bad as Kamala Harris when he opens his mouth, but you never see the media come down on her as hard. You all remember her description of Russia invading Ukraine. Quote, Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong. That's Kamala Harris describing the war in Ukraine. This past week, Trump was at it again. In a speech in Ohio, a major auto-producing state, Trump was talking about the plan by China to build automobiles in Mexico. Now, this is a major issue in Ohio and Michigan. Trump warned that any effort by China to set up factories in Mexico to compete with the U.S. auto industry would be met with strong resistance if he's the president. This is exactly what he said. Quote, no, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars if I get elected. Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars, and they're building those massive factories, end quote. What Trump was saying, again, inarticulately, as he is prone to do, was that if China builds cars in Mexico to sell in the United States, it would be a bloodbath. In other words, devastating for the American auto industry, and he would not permit it to happen. But here's what the media won't be telling you. Trump's tariff threat, part of the bloodbath tirade that roiled the presidential race, came just 9 days after Democratic senators had urged the Biden administration to consider increasing the United States tariff on Chinese-made cars. Republican lawmakers have also called for trade penalties against vehicles from China, including Missouri Senator Josh Hawley's proposal last month to add a 100% tariff to the 27% tariff that's already in place since the Trump presidency. Democrats are condemning the violent rhetoric of Trump's speech last Saturday, saying it demonstrates once again the danger he posed to American democracy. But they've been less quick to distance themselves from his call for higher tariffs amid concerns that an influx of cheap Chinese electric vehicles would decimate the U.S. auto industry. Even if they don't want him anywhere close to the Oval Office again, they agree with him on this. In an interview, Representative Debbie Dingell from Michigan echoed Trump's concern about BYD's Mexico plans and called for higher tariffs on China automakers, which both U.S. and EU officials have accused of being heavily subsidized by the Chinese government. Quoting Congressman Dingell, I really am going to be intense about ensuring that automobiles made by China aren't going to get any benefit from trade agreements that we've got. So, producing in Mexico and coming here. Now that's Congressman Debbie Dingell from Michigan, a big automobile producing state. Senator Sherrod Brown, who's in a tough race in Ohio, similarly told Politico that the U.S. must block China from bringing, quote, its government-backed cheating to the American auto industry. He said he favors increasing tariffs, but he would not specify how much and didn't explicitly endorse Trump's idea. So the next time Trump says something with his normal flamboyant manner, I would suggest you look past the inarticulate wording at the actual policies he's recommending. This is what many of the voters are doing and why Trump is leading in the key swing states. It's also why the political Democrats in Michigan and Ohio are saying pretty much the very same thing. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.